2. The social welfare and charity works of Humanistic Buddhism. Crucial factors in the global spread and acceptance of Buddhism are its dedication and support in helping people resolve life's daily problems. The purpose of the Buddha's birth in this world was to benefit sentient beings. As one of the world's utmost philanthropist and volunteer, he was indefatigable as well as selfless. The Buddha's disciples also followed in his footsteps by teaching and benefiting both self and others. Exemplars abound, such as a Pali, who not only visited the sick, but also brought them medicine. There were also Sudatta the elder and Lady Visakha, generous philanthropists. Bimbisara inspired 7,000 of his subjects in taking refuge in the Buddha. King Asaka was tireless in providing meals, pharmacies and lodgings for the sick and the destitute. All were unprecedented Buddhist endeavors in charity and social welfare. Subsequent to Buddhism's arrival in China, many Buddhist masters applied the Buddha's teachings through charitable activities. For instance, they planted trees and dug wells in addition to providing water. Free porridge was offered for sustenance. Coffins were also provided free of charge. In terms of infrastructure, free schools were established. Roads were paved, along with the building of banks, storehouses, pharmacies, and bridges. Any endeavor that benefits living beings is an instrument of the Bodhisattva path, which ties Humanistic Buddhism to society. Further examples of endeavors are: 1. Free schools. The Sangha community established by the Buddha was the first free school in Buddhism. As he traveled to different places, he in fact embodied the first Buddhist community schools when he would teach at those locations. In olden days, the people viewed Chinese monastics, being educated and knowledgeable, as teachers and sought them for answers. Buddhist temples provided free schooling, private tutoring, and learning centers, inviting distinguished teachers and masters as visiting instructors. Shrines served as classrooms, and sutta repositories as libraries. Temples and monasteries thus became locales for thinkers and the knowledgeable. Throughout history, many outstanding scholars stayed at temples to study, some for the imperial examination. For example, Dai Renji, the Tang dynasty minister, mandarinates such as Yang Zhen, Li Duan, Wang Bo, ministers such as Li Shen, Xu Sheng, and Wei Zhu. Liu Yu, the sage of tea, having grown up in a temple, later wrote the all-time classic The Classics of Tea. In addition, Song dynasty minister Wang Anshi, Fan Zhongyan, Hu Yuan, and Lu Mengzeng also spent time in temples as students. Even Chiang Kai-shek lived in Zhejiang's Zhuju Temple to study for the imperial examination. When Liang Shuming failed his Peking University entrance exam, he stayed in a temple to focus on his studies of Buddhist and Indian philosophy. His scholarly attitude was discovered by Peking University President Cai Yuanbei, who subsequently promoted him as honorary lecturer at the university. Other than the above, academies were also under the influence of Buddhist monasteries. For instance, the renowned Yuelu Academy was founded by Venerable Zhixuan. The most influential Neo-Confucian thinker, Zhu Zai once taught there. After the Yuan dynasty, colleges were established in rural areas and nurtured many talents. All these efforts, under the influence of free Buddhist schools, were undertaken with the aim of assisting the development of education. 2. Environmental protection and forestation. Buddhists have always valued the protection of the environment and contributed greatly to the preservation of nature. As has been said, renowned mountains have mostly been occupied by monastics. Past generations of monastics have cultivated wastelands and built monasteries. Additionally, in terms of ecological preservation, they took to forestation, conserving sources of water, improving water and soil upkeep as well as natural disaster protection. Among these monastics was Chan Master Zizong from the Lingji lineage. He not only beautified his monastery, but also set an example for his successors. Master Menjiuan planted 10,000 pine, cypress, and camphor trees to prevent floods in Sizhou. Temples thousands of years old, such as Tanto Temple and Jide Temple in Beijing, are now surrounded by trees that reach up to the sky. They are all classed as natural heritage sites today. 3. Turning Way Stellans into Farmlands. After Buddhism's arrival in China, the Chan school observed Mazu's establishment of monastery and Hsing's introduction of pure regulations. Monasteries transformed wastelands into farmlands as a means of self-sustenance through agriculture. For example, Venerable Yongjing from Xongshan developed 300 acres in the mountainous regions. Chan Master Fori Pugang cultivated 1,000 acres of fertile fields, increasing the annual harvest by 5,000 liters. Chan Master Dao Gai 1043 to 1118 turned dry lake into farmland and grew crops. Zhejiang Tiantong Temple cultivated reclaimed lands and increased the annual harvest by over 15,000 liters. Not only were these monasteries self-sufficient, they also contributed greatly to the growth of the surrounding townships. 4. Oil mills. China, as a nation, was built through agriculture, specifically rice farming. The staple diet of the people was rice. At the time, farmers manually toiled the fields, which was both time and labor-intensive. In the Tang and Song dynasties, monasteries began building grinderies and rice mills. Hydraulic trip hammers were found inside Mingzhu Tiantong, Meiji Mountain Changshan, Chonggoyuan, Tiazuhuianuan, and Lanqiuan temples. This was a great benefit not only to temple residents but local farmers as well. As some temples set up oil mills to supplement the temple's incomes, this also benefited local farmers by raising the value of local agriculture. 5. Relief aid. In the past, frequent occurrences of natural disasters, wars and man-made calamities caused poverty and distress. Not only did Buddhists act as spiritual mentors, they also provided economic assistance to the people. Buddhist temples spared no efforts to provide relief aid to the poor and needy. For example, Master Tanyan, from the Sui dynasty, gave away rice and offered the poor shelter in his temple. He even helped the emperor resolve the issue of rice distribution. Tang dynasty monk Zhikong raised funds for a rice storage to help the people. Other monastics such as Mai, Kaizan, Faiyun, and Lingren established the Fields of Compassion funds in addition to distributing free food. Other Buddhist philanthropic undertakings include the Incalculable Registry introduced by Miao. He also utilized the provisions from the incalculable grains storages to relieve people from famines. Furthermore, temple storages and pawnshops were used to bring relief to those in poverty and distress. Till the Sui dynasty, Chan Master Hsing of the teachings of the 3 levels. This allowed people to pawn money, rice, food, lamp oil, and clothing interest-free. Mills that were built in later periods actually followed a similar principle. Similar to modern-day farmers' unions, cooperative society, and even pawnshops. The inexhaustible storehouse was widely accepted for creating the cause for giving by all levels of society and relieving the poor and needy. Possibly the precursor to modern-day pawnshops, Buddhists established loan centers to provide financial aid to the people and the state. The notable distinction of these loan centers was their lack of concern for profit through high rates of interest. Their sole purpose was to give back to society what they had received. This exhibited the core spirit of Humanistic Buddhism by using society's generous contributions to help the people resolve their difficulties. 6. Medical services and support. The Buddha was regarded as the great king of doctors, whereas the Sangha was the nurse that cared for the people. In the past, many eminent monks such as Hsing, Zhafei Dao, Zhafei Kang, Tanyan, and Tanluan 476-542 were skilled in the field of medicine and used their expertise to treat the sick. During the Southern and Northern dynasties, Buddhists established houses of benefit, Six Illnesses Center, and the Gudayuan Asylum. In the Tang dynasty they set up infirmaries and treatment centers, whilst in the Song dynasty the Fuxianuan Welfare House was founded. Countless other examples exist. These were all charitable undertakings help the poor and sick. 7. Wells and water. Buddhists often volunteered to distribute water and lanterns to help passers-by quench their thirst and continue their journey. To improve access to water, monasteries also repaired as well as dug wells to provide drinking and washing water. Chan Master Deshao from the Wan Yue periods in the 5 dynasties excavated wells on Mount Hua, Hanzhou, to help people during the drought. In the Tang dynasty, Venerable Hui Bin dug and built public wells in Wenshui as a show of gratitude to his parents. Venerable Chengguan at Payui Temple in Jiangning provided public access to its water supply. Again, all these efforts benefited the community. 8. Water resource development. Another act of philanthropy related to water, apart from digging wells, was the construction of irrigation works. In the Song dynasty, Venerable Weixi from Fuzhou spent 9 years in Chang'an County to construct a 2,700-meter-long embankment by intercepting 12 rivulets. This provided water for 40 hectares of farmland. Venerable Hsing took 11 years to fundraise for the construction of a 30,000-meter levee. This irrigated over 20 hectares of farmland. Venerable Master Chun Kai from Hengyue Temple lead the monastic order in digging canals to divert water into drought areas. At the renowned West Lake Scenic Area, embankments constructed under the supervision of Baizhai and Sudongpo still remain. These infrastructures all share an affiliation with Buddhism today. 9. Paving roads and bridges. One of the most significant Buddhist contributions to local towns were the constructions of bridges and paving of roads. During the Song dynasty, in the Fujian, Xiamen and Quanzhou regions, bridges funded and built by monastics numbered in the hundreds. Venerable Daoxun, in his lifetime, was said to have constructed over 200 bridges. Venerables Pazu, Liaoxing, and Shaoxing also erected numerous bridges. When added with those built by other monastics, the sum total was in the order of several thousand. Others, such as Venerables Mingking, Jaishan, Siki, and Yunkang constructed street paths. Venerables Daokan and Duenta led monastics in carrying soil used to build roads. Venerable Doyu supervised the project of digging a pond near the Longmen Grottos to build a watercourse. This shipping canal was a great boon for travelers and merchants, generating much local prosperity. 10. Hostels. In olden times, transportation and its related infrastructure were not as sophisticated. Thus, Buddhists erected pavilions to offer refreshment and rest. They also hung lanterns to illuminate roads on the outskirts of towns. Monasteries, such as Baoshao Temple from the Tang Dynasty, and Putong Temple on Mount Wade also provided lodgings for journeying merchants or imperial examination candidates. All of these were of tremendous convenience for travelers. To propagate the Dharma, monastics would often travel on foot to faraway places. In doing so, they also brought with them various traditions and cultures. For example, many novices traveled between Chan Master Mazudi's monastery in Jiangxi and Chan Master Shatuxikan's monastery in Hunan. The two regions were thus collectively named Jianghu, lit. The world. Accordingly, travelers there were called Jianghuamers. During the Ming Dynasty, Chan Master Yuan brought kidney beans and Chinese tea ceremony to Japan. Thus the Japanese call the bean Renmame. He was also known as the father of the Japanese way of Sincha. Historian and Professor Tang Digang once told me that in the Eastern Jin dynasty, a monastic named Hsing had already gone to spread Buddhism in Mexico, preceding Columbus' discovery of America. References to this can be found in Volume 54 of the Book of Liang and also Volume 79 of the History of the Southern Dynasties. According to him, residents of a Mexican town named Acapulco inherited their Buddhist faith from their ancestors. He also said that Venerable Hsing had left an anchor stone later acquired by a museum in San Francisco. Originally an unknown religion, Venerable Hsing's efforts brought monastics, sutras, Buddhist statues, and the Dharma to the American continent. The propagation works of a Buddhist monastic thus connected China and Mexico, two of the world's greatest civilizations separated by the Pacific Ocean. 11. Emergency relief. When wars occurred, temples would become grounds for army camps and refugee shelters. During the anti-Japanese resistance war, in 1937, Master Tikshu traveled all the way to India to propagate the Buddhist doctrine of peace. He hoped to gain international attention for the anti-Japanese invasion movement. Venerable Legwin organized a monastic rescue team to help the distressed. Venerable Jiren and Venerable Master Zhikai from Nanjing Chixia Monastery took in over 200,000 refugees. General Liao Yaoxong, a high-ranking commander who fought the Japanese, was hiding among the refugees. The monastics at Kashashan helped conceal his identity to help him reach the front lines and continue his defense of the country. Soldiers and refugees were not merely provided with the daily necessities. Through the practice of Humanistic Buddhism, they were also offered comfort from distress, salvation from the cruelties of war, and ultimately a place to call home. During the Northern Wei dynasty, the establishment of Buddhist residences allowed convicts to perform community services by farming temple lands and digging canals. The wish of Buddhists to help not only the poor, but also society and the state is evident in their charitable undertakings. Such compassionate efforts include bathhouses, winter aid relief, and free medical services as well as care for the elderly. In addition, releasing animals and nurturing gardens were means of caring not just for humans, but also all flora and fauna. These are all Buddhist contributions to both country and society. Prior to the establishment of any police department in China, temples assisted greatly in mediating disputes. For example, the reception hall of Putuashan Monastery served as a police station to help resolve disputes. Had Mazu not believed in Guanyin Bodhisattva, how could she have relieved people from distress and suffering? Chan Master Pazu is revered in Taiwan due to his rain prayer that nourished many lives. Across different eras and differing societies, Humanistic Buddhism has offered help and relief to the distressed. In this, Buddhists became self-sufficient through the unity of agriculture and Chen. The world must be made aware of this history. Where there is Buddhism, there will always be compassionate people to comfort and relieve people from sorrow and suffering. It is hoped that politicians, scholars, and social workers will contribute to the history of Humanistic Buddhism by recognizing its compassion and service to society. The contemporary development of Humanistic Buddhism must ultimately be attributed to the Buddha's efforts and teachings. For this reason, as practitioners, we must never forget our gratitude towards the Humanistic Buddha. We hope that when China promotes its culture, it also remembers the contributions and influence Humanistic Buddhism has had in shaping it. Dedication of merits. May kindness, compassion, joy and equanimity pervade all worlds. May we cherish and build affinities to benefit all beings. May Chan, Pure Land and precepts inspire equality and patience. May our humility and gratitude give rise to great vows.